What is going on YouTube? Carter here. Have another video for you. We're going to be taking a look at this beautiful gem from Cold Steel. Little history here. So as I'm looking through my knife collection, kind of getting things in order, thinking, what have I reviewed? What have I talked about? I was thinking, whatever happened to your SR1 Lite? I know I had it. I used it quite a bit for a certain amount of time. Could not find it, had no idea where it is. And literally just a few minutes ago, I was digging through a basket that I keep keys and junk in. And here it was at the very bottom of the pile, sitting there waiting to be spoken about today. Here it is, the beautiful SR1 Lite. Now, the SR1 Lite series is one of my favorite kind of budget, Cold Steel, triad lock offerings. I really like them. I'm a fan of Cold Steel. I have been for a long time. I think they get a bad rap sometimes, and I think they've kind of got a history of the Mall Ninja stuff, which I think they've separated themselves from quite a bit over the last few years. Not saying it's completely gone, not saying that there's not a healthy dose of Mall Ninja still in Cold Steel. There certainly is, and I'll be honest, I kind of like it. It's kind of fun. In that tongue-in-cheek, kind of ironic, but not ironic kind of way. But I really like Cold Steel. I think they've done a lot of really cool things, a lot of innovative things. I think they've made a ton of smart business moves. I might talk a little bit about that more in the future. Speaking of which, one of my favorite Cold Steel knives ever so far is the 8010 with the black-hooded blade. And for me, the green handles. They've also got tan and straight up black on black, which is also very sexy. But I'm going to talk about this baby a little bit later. Right now, we're talking about the SR1 Lite. So what are we looking at? The SR1 is a very cool triad lock folder series that they decided to put into the Lite series. The Lite series is basically the budget version of that. So the full version, I assume, has something similar to this, S35VN, probably. It would have G10 handles. I've actually owned one of the main series, the SR1, years and years ago. But the Lite series takes the steel down a notch to 8CR13 MOV, and then it exchanges the handles with Grivory as opposed to G10. And I'll be honest, I've been very happy with the Grivory material. I have it on a few different knives, and I have had no issues with it. It seems to behave in a similar way to G10. It feels a little bit different. I think it's maybe a little less flexible, but it's a very tough material. You can get some really good textures on it. It's all injection molded, I assume. You get some good textures on it. It's got a really good lightweightness to it. It doesn't hold heat, doesn't hold cold. I think it's a really good material and a very good alternative to G10. 8CR13 MOV, it's fine. It's a good all-around steel, especially for the money. It's used extensively. When it's heat treated correctly, it's a fine steel. Obviously, it's not a super steel. You're not going to get the toughness and the hardness and everything involved, but it's a good stainless steel option. And for something as thick as this and purpose-built as this, I think it's great. The best part, though, about this knife is those are the only concessions made. Everything else is the same. Same smooth action. In fact, the SR1s, in my experience, have some of the smoothest triad lock actions out of any of the knives, and that includes this one. So this is the same robust triad lock, hitting that frame, transferring all that energy through the entire frame as you would get on the full version. Same pocket clip, same pivot, same thumb studs. Everything's the same except for the steel and the handle material. And honestly, like I said, the handle material, potato to me. G10 looks a little bit better. You tend to have more color options, but Grivory is pretty nice stuff. The blade steel is what it is. So we have a pretty large knife here. Let's compare it to the trusty PM2. You can see bigger than the PM2. Let's do a quick weight on this guy. It is pretty heavy. It's all blade though. The handle's not very light, or not very heavy. 6.8 ounces, so almost 7 ounces on this bad boy. And like I said though, it's mostly blade. Balance point is almost at that choil. It wants to go forward just a little bit. So really right about here, right about the pivot is where it's balanced. So it feels pretty good. It's a tad bit blade heavy. You can see how thick that stock is and how robust that tip is. I think you're going to get a little less of that in the drop point because you're going to have a little less material up towards the tip. It'll be balanced a little better. I think the blade's slightly lighter. This Tonto is a beast, as you can see. Grind lines on this thing, fairly even. You could almost not even tell. This one's a little bit lower on this primary bevel, or I guess higher, depending on how you're looking at it. You can see right there. But looks very good. Nice crisp lines. I love how Cold Steel keeps the grain on the flats there. One thing I look for, guys, in knives when we're getting out of performance world and we're just talking aesthetics and quality, is how crisp these grind lines are. Is it look like they kind of ground it and then just buff the whole thing and these lines are mushy, or are they crisp and clean? This is pretty crisp and clean. You get these nice geometric changes with the different grain there. Really, really good. So what is this used for? This is a hard use knife. It fits into that category. Triad lock, super tough, super strong, but also this blade, the thickness, how much material you have up at the tip here. If you're talking about a folding pry bar, this is it. I mean, this is it. Not only is it the thickness of the metal, but also this particular grind. I mean, this thing, you could literally pry with it, right? You could pry with it and you might break the very tip off, but that's about it. It's going to be able to handle a lot, especially if you get the S35 VN version, the more expensive version. Then you're really talking about some powerful ability in the blade. Now, of course, it can still cut. It's very, very sharp. It is pretty thick behind this bevel, though. It is definitely not a fine slicer. So camping knife, self-defense knife, even though it's long and big, it's actually got a fairly slender profile. If you compare it to the 8010, you can see how the blade profile is more lean. It's kind of just got a longer type stretched out profile to it, a little bit longer than the 8010 too. So a little bit more on the defensive tactical side of things, I would say, than this. This is more utilitarian, camping, general purpose, tough knife. This one is a little bit more, use it potentially for self-defense if you were so inclined, but also just a general purpose, heavy duty built knife. Rides in the pocket pretty good. This grivery texture does shred a tad. I've actually bent this clip out just a little bit so that it was easier to get into my pocket. This is steel, and it's very thick steel, so there's not a lot of spring there. So you might want to remove the clip, smooth out underneath it, or put some sort of material underneath it so it doesn't shred your pockets. Or you can just let it shred, baby. Let it shred. Eventually this will kind of wear down and smooth a little bit. As you can see, this thing is kind of dirty. I was going to clean it up, but then I thought, let it ride, show it as it is. This is a user. This is a have it around my house so that I can grab a knife really quickly type knife. Don't really carry this anymore. I carry cooler knives generally, but I wouldn't hesitate to throw this in my pocket. So, all right, guys. Cold Steel SR1 Lite. Really like this series. Really like this knife. Excellent quality for the money. Super smooth, super tough. Great knife. If this is your price range, or even if it's not, it's a cool knife to have. Throw it in your truck, throw it in your camping bag, throw it in your fishing, whatever. You're good to go. So, SR1 Lite, definitely recommend. Really cool knife. I'm out of here. Thank you for all the support. Thank you for all the likes. Thank you for everything. All right, guys. See ya.